I will call the meeting to order. I'm going to start with some information about how we're doing this. As a preliminary matter, I'm the chair, Dawn Holgate. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Jason Bridges.
I can hear you. Thank you.
Rita.
Yes, I can hear you.
Matt.
Yes.
Christy.
Yes.
Staff, please, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Let's see, Libby Gibson.
Present.
Erica Mooney.
Here.
Janet Schulte.
Present.
Roberto Santamaria.
Present.
Greg Tibnan.
Present.
Bill Pittman.
Present.
Tucker Holland.
Present.
Okay. And we also have Dr. Pearl and Gary Shaw on with us this evening. Could you both?
Yeah.
We are present.
Thank you. Sorry, everyone's going to have to bear with me a little bit. Good evening. This open meeting of the Nantucket Select Board is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020. Due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirements of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment through YouTube. For this select board meeting, is convening by video conference via Zoom as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. For Zoom meetings, please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Meeting materials. All supporting materials have been provided. Members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I, the chair, notes otherwise. Meeting business ground rules. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I, the chair, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude the remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please
Dawn,
until your name is called.
Dawn, hold on one second. We're having sound issues and they have to reboot the stream on YouTube. Can we just pause for a second?
Yes.
Thanks. Okay, can we just do a quick test?
Test.
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 Okay, are we good?
Yes, we're good.
So I'll go back to I, the chair, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called further. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any responses, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in a conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows. Staff will activate the chat feature on YouTube. Members of the public who have comments or questions can use this feature to communicate with the public body. Instructions are on the town's website. The chair and/or staff will do their best to address the questions and comments. And I would note that comments that don't get a response tonight will get a response via email. The chair and staff will do their best to address the comments. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. Okay, that's that. So we've called the meeting to order. We will, we'll accept the agenda as written, but we will be discussing all of the COVID-19 sort of issues and stipulations at the beginning of the meeting. The meeting is being audio and video recorded, and I'm going to turn it over to the town manager to start the COVID-19 weekly update.
Okay, so the town of Nantucket has issued 3 local emergency orders. The first was a temporary moratorium on construction. The second was a personal care services temporary shutdown. And the third is a stay-at-home order. Now, what has happened since all of these orders have been issued are a couple of things. Number one, the governor has now issued a stay-at-home order statewide. So we've had a lot of discussion over the last 24 hours as to the differences between his order and our local order. I don't know that there's town council, Lauren, hi. So we spent a lot of time talking to town council today and are amongst ourselves and checking around about how the orders differ. So it seems that the basic differences relate to construction and potentially landscaping. Our local order has order number 1 is a temporary moratorium on construction. All construction is not to be happening unless there are specific emergencies. Without getting into a lot of detail, because there's an order, there's varying degrees of the orders and how we did it and how he did it that pertain to landscaping. But our stay-at-home order basically here on Nantucket is a ban on landscaping. So there seems to be a conflict with us and what the governor has done. So I would turn it over to town council to discuss, sorry, Lauren, but to discuss that a little bit. She has prepared a letter that you all have that Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard have been discussing as to seeking a sort of a petition-like request to the governor to formally request that Nantucket be exempted from the state order designating construction and landscaping services to be essential. So in other words, we want to maintain our order that those services are not essential and keep them not happening right now. Lauren? I think you gotta unmute.
Thank you, Libby, and hello, everyone. I did just send you, Libby, the final draft of the letter that we have been working on. So essentially, in kind of a abbreviated way of describing it, the orders that the town has adopted make it the case that leaving the house to to work at a business that's not listed as essential is prohibited. And so not prohibited, leaving to work at those businesses is prohibited. Essentially limiting the number of non-essential activities that can take place on the island. And so the order that the governor issued has language that says that all construction can continue to operate. And we were also, as essential business, and we were also informed that landscaping has been designated as an essential business. So based on those issues, we've been telling our towns that have orders, there's language in the governor's order and in a letter today from the chief legal counsel to the governor that essentially suggests that any order that's limiting construction or limiting any other types of businesses than those listed as essential should withdraw their orders. And so in some towns and some cities, they are withdrawing their construction ban orders and requiring that compliance be met with the orders that have been issued by, or the orders that will be issued by DPH relative to safe conduct at construction sites. I think the islands are, as I know you must as well, that the islands are in a bit of a different position with respect to the construction ban and the landscaping. And here the decisions were made simultaneously to limit both of those businesses because of the risk to the island of people coming over for the day and then going back and coming over and going back. And so the idea was that we have neither the hospital facilities, the hospital resources, nor the law enforcement facilities and resources to be trying to enforce some sort of site by site restriction or of this type of operation, and that instead it really needs to be island wide, and that we don't have the resources to send someone out to look at a particular site to determine what is and is not in compliance with the safety order. Simultaneously to you guys thinking about this and talking about this, there has been similar discussions on Martha's Vineyard. We also represent the town of Tisbury over there, and I've been working with the other town's attorney to see what their interest level was in seeking out a similar kind of petition to the governor, and they were all unanimously in favor of sending a letter. So I spent better part of today putting that together, getting all the comments in from the other attorney, and trying to represent the positions of the two islands accurately and emphatically, so that the governor and the lieutenant governor understand how important this is to the islands and our need for quick action.
So I don't know if the board maybe wants to have a discussion about this. What our position has been in the meantime is, and with advice from town council, again, is to stay the course as we are because of our unique circumstances with the vineyard. And I think they are prepared to do the same thing. Lauren, I don't know if you talked to anybody over there about that, but I sort of was going back and forth with one of the managers, and that seemed to be what their position was going to be. We have gotten some inquiries today about and something's coming in just now too about Boston, about, the governor's order does allow certain types of construction projects. And I think that is going to potentially open up the floodgates again back here. And we might not have the gains that we saw over the last few days. And, it could be a real issue. So Lauren and I were going back and forth today about staying the course until the governor can respond to us, and hope that would be immediate within the next, 24 to 48 hours at the most, because we know people are very anxious to find out what is going to happen. Are they going to be allowed to work or not? But our position right now is that they are not, unless the board wants to change that.
And if I could just add, Libby, that I have had this conversation with the attorney on Martha's Vineyard, and he indicated that he thought that's what they were going to do as well. They're really eager to get the letter out, as I know, makes sense. And so the agreement between the attorney for those other towns and myself was that we would use a digital signature, a digital representation of a signature from each of the board's chairs, if that is what this board is inclined to do. And the other boards have already agreed that that's the approach that they're comfortable with. So I think, and Julian Sear, Senator Sear, indicated that he would arrange for the letter to be hand delivered or delivered to the governor's office once it was approved. So, if you guys are comfortable, if the board is comfortable with the letter, then you can vote to authorize the chair to sign, and then we can get that off to Senator Sear for filing.
Oh, Jason?
Lauren, is the letter that you just sent us much different than what I read, I would say around 2, 3, 4 o'clock today?
Oh, Lauren, you need to unmute.
User error. I'll learn. Okay, 1 second. I was just going to go over here and see if I copied Libby. Or Libby, did you forward that to the board?
I just now forwarded what you
Okay.
said.
Okay. So it is substantially similar. It made a few changes based on the feedback and the input from the other towns, and basically it has information in it similar to the information in Nantucket about people being on self-quarantine. It has a beginning paragraph that thanks the governor and the lieutenant governor for all the work that they've been doing. And it has, there's a place or two where there were typos, and so those have been corrected. And it asks for an immediate response. So other than kind of calling out the separate types of orders passed by each town, and also the including information that is a little bit more Nantucket representative, it is virtually the same letter with that introduction paragraph.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Matt?
Yeah, it's Matt Fee. I think we should send the letter. I support sending it. If we get a lot of pushback from the governor or from that side, I think we should be thinking about, is there a way to do it partially, have one person on the site, they leave 3 days, have some sort of essential services designation request so we know what sites, and just keep it really tight if they do. I mean, I'd like to keep it closed at least for another week or two, but if in fact the state's gonna open the floodgates, we should be, I think, willing to try to put something that will work that's safe. And I don't know what that is. I'm not in the meetings, but I think that's should be a fallback.
Like entering into some kind of an agreement with the Builders Association for limitations?
Well, maybe with them, or maybe maybe we have to make rules that say only one person on the site. Someone can go in and paint by himself. Then 3 days later, someone else can go in. Like if it's safe, like we have to figure, if they're going to push us, the last thing we want to do is have everything open up and everyone pushed to be open by July. That would be a mess. So all I'm saying is, we may have to give, if we have to give a little bit, let's find a smart way to give. I don't know what that is. But I do know the state, they do have an essential service designation request form that if you're not on that list, but you feel you should be, it goes to the state and they review it. We could do similar here, and and do it in a way that is safe and we know where it is, and then put a good fine on it, 4 times the building permit for the builder and the owner, or do something. And people will say that's not legal. Well, this is uncharted territory, but make it very onerous, but make sure if we do have to open it, we do it we do it in a couple weeks and we do it very slowly.
Madam Chairwoman, if I could.
All right, Lauren, sorry.
No, thank you. So the governor, through the chief legal counsel, his chief legal counsel today, indicated that there's going to be a set of safety standards that are released that they've determined are consistent with running a safe site. That I understand and agree that there may be some regulation that can be done, and that seems to me to be the best option if there are no others. Essentially what we're doing today is almost a reverse of the process that Matt was suggesting with respect to the town, to say for Nantucket, these things aren't essential and shouldn't be continuing. I really don't know what their reaction might be. They were pretty clear, in this letter that they think construction is essential. However, you guys aren't making that a decision on construction because of financial issues, which seems to be some of what he's basing his decision on. In fact, is probably exactly the opposite. It really is just on health and safety issues. And so, I think we have a good position to discuss that from, unfortunately, based on the population and the hospital space and the number of ICU beds and the number of ventilators and all of the other information that we've been discussing. I do assume we'll hear quickly, but I hope that we have the opportunity to kind of explain this isn't just the islands being temperamental or not agreeing with the governor's position. It's much more that it will impact the islands much differently than it will impact the cities and towns that have already adopted such bans.
Other board questions, comments? Do we want to hear from the hospital?
Yeah.
We've opened our mic and happy to speak if that's okay.
Yes, please.
I have Dr. Diane Pearl with a few comments, and then I'll probably have a few of my own. Diane?
Thank you. Thanks, Don. So I have been very gratified over the past 2 weeks, or however long since we last spoke about this problem, to see how slowly this is spreading through our community with the current state of recommendations, with the social distancing being critical, and with the other recommendations for hygiene. We have not seen an explosion yet. And so it is extremely gratifying to me to see how effective our community has been at preventing infection. We have had 3 confirmed cases. In my discussion with those people, they were very careful with their social hygiene from the minute probably of exposure, because everyone is hyper aware of what to do and what not to do. If they hadn't been, and if things had been going along as normal, life as normal, we would have, I don't know how many hundreds of cases, because people would be mingling and socializing and, reading each other fondly, which we hope to get back to someday, normal life. But right now, I'm concerned that if we go back toward normal life, that we will have lost these gains and we'll start to see a lot more infection. And some of the times the infections, most of the time, are relatively mild, but even in these 3 cases, one is quite severe. So I am certainly not in favor of changing what we're doing right now.
I have no other comment.
Thank you. I think that Christy had her hand up.
Yes. I just wanted to first disclose that I think this is an island-wide issue, but I do have extended family that work in the landscaping field. But I'm going to participate looking at this as an island-wide conversation. I think that we've heard it continuously from the hospital that we have a unique circumstance that we need to be able to protect our citizens, and that means keeping the construction closed. One of the things that is coming through, I know when we're talking about it from a financial point, hopefully with a federal stimulus bill going through soon, independent contractors will be able to get unemployment assistance, and hopefully that can provide some assistance to the people who have been out of work. So looking at it from both a financial and a public safety issue, I'm hoping that we can continue these orders.
Rita? Rita?
Yep, and I just wanted to echo as well that I am absolutely in favor of staying the course and adding the landscape services, covering construction and maintenance. As someone in the landscape industry, I absolutely don't think it's essential, and I think there's too much risk for exposing people. So I definitely want to stay the course, and if it comes to it, we can find, if we have to, as per Matt's suggestion, we can find a way to keep job sites safe. But I think until then, we have to come across with a moratorium on both.
Jason?
Thank you, Don. Just want to say the letter was really well written. I read it twice, not the newest one. I'm trying to flip through it right now. If we're ready for a motion, I'd be happy to make a motion to send this to the governor's office. I think it's important. I like what Christy had to say, but this has to, we have to try to do this as best we can, and let's push the governor's office for it. And then Matt, we can at the same time look at measures of how to rebound when we're ready, whenever that happens, whenever the hospital and emergency management says we're ready. So if anybody would like a motion, I'd be happy to make it.
Can I just ask one question beforehand? What do we do while we're waiting for a response from the governor? I mean, do we think we'll get a response tomorrow? Do we open ourselves up to any kind of legal exposure if we continue to try and enforce this when the governor's order says it supersedes it? I just want to make sure that in this uncharted waters, we're not opening the town up to additional problems.
Thank you, and that's a good question. I know that's on everyone's mind. So if, as I said, that we're telling other towns that we think that they should withdraw their orders and begin to implement the safety protocols and require the safety protocols. So essentially amending their earlier orders or supplementing them. Here, if we lift the order while we're waiting for resolution, we've undone the progress that we've made potentially, and we've hindered the hospital's ability to respond to the number of people that that may be exposed or that become ill during that time. So the goal is to send it today if we can. Send it over. If you guys vote to approve it, then I will send it to Senator Sears, Chief of Staff, and try to get the ball rolling on that. And hopefully we'll hear back sooner rather than later. You know, I think I am hopeful that we'll get a chance to discuss this with their staff before a final decision is made to reject it. I think you have a very good case for them to approve it. What's different about it is that they have to figure out the mechanism that they would have to figure out the mechanism by which they would allow this. So that might take a little bit of time to work out. You know, we are, John, Giorgio, and I are prepared and available to assist with that in whatever way possible. We understand the governor's office and lieutenant governor's offices are swamped with responsibilities, and they're also trying to navigate uncharted waters. So to the extent that we can be helpful and get a good outcome here for the island, you know, that's our intent. And I think getting the letter today, getting it out today, number one, it really does demonstrate that that Nantucket and all of the towns of Martha's Vineyard are on the same page on this, and also think it's so important that it got done. I forget what time we got that letter, Libby, but it's like sometime in the afternoon. It was like 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock. So the fact that we've gotten this far in this short of a time, as you know, it takes a lot of work to get everyone on the same page. And I think the fact that you all are really does demonstrate the importance to the governor's office of how big a deal this is.
Just to interject very quickly, to get 6 towns on the Vineyard to agree to anything is pretty incredible.
Okay, and I think that everything that Matt's talking about is important to talk about as like the next phase of to slowly reopen our community after we feel that it's safe. But I would be happy to take a motion. I think Jason was ready to make one, unless anybody else wants to say anything. Raise your hand. Okay, Jason,
Motion to approve the letter and send to the governor's office.
is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, everyone unmute all board members because I'm gonna do a roll call vote. Jason Bridges,
Aye.
Matthew Fee,
Aye.
Rita Higgins,
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella,
Aye.
John Holgate, aye. So Lauren, if you send that in the e-signature, I'll sign it.
So I used a mechanism that just, it has your name and then a backslash and then an S and a backslash, which is one of the ways that the SJC, the Supreme Judicial Court, said things could be filed today. So if you're comfortable with that, we can deem it official and send it off.
That sounds fine to me, unless
Okay.
anyone has an objection.
Okay, so I will copy you guys on the email to Patrick Johnson, the senator's legal assistant. I mean, legal assistant. I don't know who I am. Chief of staff, and send that out right now while we're on the phone.
Okay, great.
Thank
What else are we going over here? Were we going to do some other updates from Board of Health? And are we going to open this up for any public questions?
I was thinking we could just quickly get through the outline that I sent around for the updates. And actually, in looking through the agenda, the items that are on the agenda that relate to this, like item number 3 under announcements, and even a little bit of item number 8, select board's reports and comments, number 1, discussion regarding emergency order number 1. That's kind of all covered here, but you can certainly, since it's on the agenda like that, fill people in as we get to those items. The next item we were going to mention is the the state order, other than those things that we just did, would apply pretty much to the town of Nantucket and every other town in the Commonwealth. And that is now in effect until April 7th. We also heard just this afternoon that the schools will remain closed until May 4th. Everybody probably knows that by now. And we were going to get a report from the hospital just as to, sort of what's going on. And we've been working with them with MEMA and trying to get more PPE and things like that over. So if you want to continue with the outline, the hospital.
Yeah, I just pulled it up.
Okay, thank you. The hospital would be next to give a brief update.
Thank you. We've unmuted our mic. Gary Shaw, the president and CEO of Nantucket Cottage Hospital. I think what I'll do is I'll just start from where we have posted things on our website. Please go there and look for current changing information. We're trying to make sure that whatever we know about on this issue is posted there. But I know since we last met a while ago, we have, as you know, we've gone and canceled non-urgent appointments and elective procedures. There are a number of things that we are working with our providers on a select basis to address patients that have some unique chemotherapy needs or some echocardiograms that are scheduled, but those you probably, if you're one of those patients, would already know that. And so we are working through some special needs. If you have those special needs or feel you do, we'd like you to call the hospital so that we can make sure that we arrange that with you. Just want to be really clear that if you're on this island, we're here for you. And although we don't have a lot of open, non-urgent or elective procedures going on right now, we want to hear from you so that we can understand what your needs are and help you. We did go ahead based on the COVID restrictions, and we've pretty much locked down our building with the exception of an entry through the emergency room. All of our employees are now going not through the emergency room. That's an area where if you feel you need to come in and be seen, that's where you would go and you would be screened. And after then screening, you would then be directed to next steps within the medical center. But we are having our employees enter during business hours through a different entrance so that we can protect our employees and not have commingling. And that process has been working really, really well. We did put out an urgent request for medical supplies to the community to help us with a second and third line of defense. First line is obviously what we order. Second line is what we have thought about using, and that's personal protective gear from different sources. I have to tell you, the outpouring has been incredible. Please keep it up. Let's just hope we don't need that. But it is quite generous to see what's coming in, and it puts a tear in your eye, quite frankly, when you go down to see our loading dock, what comes in every day. So thank you very much to the community for that support. We did issue a joint statement with Martha's Vineyard quite some time ago now that said, you know, if you're not on the island and don't need to come here, we'd prefer that you don't. Just for clarification, what that really is meant to imply is that with illness circulating in the general population in many states now, you are probably healthier, have a healthier option if you stay where you are and shelter at home rather than traveling through a pool of individuals that may be infected, and we want you to consider that. And if you are on this island, then we of course want you to, if you feel there's any need, any colds or sniffles or things that are new, shelter in home and call us, and we'd be happy to talk to you about all of that and how we can work you in to be seen. We did then go out for a request for donations for homemade face masks and those types of things. Those are our third level of defense that, and I have to tell you that we've received hundreds of those face masks, and they're still coming. So for all of you in the community that have taken up that call, God bless you. They are beautiful, they fit, and we're inventorying them and keeping them in stock, and please keep them coming. That's very much appreciated. We did put out a call for medical reserve staff to tell us if they're here on the island, and we've received about calls from about 14 licensed physicians and then a whole host of nurses and other individuals. There's a number that's out on our website. If you have any ability to provide healthcare support, we would love to hear from you. And of course, our first priority is to our staff that are here, our nurses, our doctors, but where we need to fill in around the edges or start another type of volunteer activity, that's what that's intended to provide. So we just appreciate that you would let us know you're here and be patient, and we will talk to you. So thank you. We did then create a drive-through service that has been extremely successful, that was positioned out of the alcove on the hospital. We have seen quite a number of patients go through. I'll tell you that through that drive-through now, where we asked people to come if they had any symptoms at all of upper respiratory infection and they were concerned about it, to come there rather than to try to come in the hospital. And from what I'm understanding, the individuals coming through that are very appreciative of the staff that are there. It is led by Dr. Diane Pearl here, so she might be able to answer any questions if you have them later. But so far, we've done samples on 62 individuals as of today. Of course, I know the community knows we've had 3 positive COVID-19s that are in quarantine. We've had negatives of 31, and we have pending on 28. Very, very successful to have that happen. So organized, and Diane has organized that. I will just say that the support that the town is giving towards preventing the circulation of this disease is fantastic. I couldn't work with a better group of professionals in the town, within the emergency services, and all of the providers and caregivers of this medical center, and our board of directors. It is quite a pleasure to be able to see everybody jump in and work to prevent this disease from circulating. And I'll ask Dr. Pearl if she'd like to say anything else.
No, you covered that very well. So you'll see us wearing these masks, which is a Mass General Partners wide requirement for any caregivers, which might seem concerning to patients who are coming here. This is to protect them and us, but we all assume that each other, we almost have to assume that you have an infection and I might have the infection, and we're trying to make sure that it's not spread. So anyone that's alarmed by our wearing of masks should not be alarmed by that, but grateful for that. We, just 1 second. So yes, we have a way to come into the hospital no matter what your symptoms are, we will take care of the community. So I know that people are not coming very often, and we're grateful for that, so we can pay attention and really focus on preparedness and being ready for a really big surge. Any kind of surge will be a challenge for us, but I think we're very, very much ready and working very hard in case this becomes a significant problem on the island. And still, we want to give care to our patients on a daily basis.
Lastly, I'll just mention to those that are on the line that we do have same-day care open. We do ask that if you are wanting to get them the same day because you feel you have an upper respiratory infection, that's when you should call. That's when you should use the drive-through, so we can evaluate you and then help guide you to the appropriate level of care that you may need. That same-day care is open Tuesday through Friday from 7:20 in the morning until 5:20 in the evening. So please utilize that if you have those ear infections or other things with kids, or that you would want to have to address. I think that's all we have.
Thank you very much.
There's a couple things I forgot to mention that happened today and yesterday that I would like the chief to make mention of, and they pertain to the National Guard and state police troopers that are going to be coming here hopefully by the end of the week. Chief, you want to just quickly explain? Because people are going to see them around.
Sure. Thank you, Libby. Madam Chair, the state reached out to us after we had a conference call a few days ago talking about what we needed in terms of support. And one of our concerns is obviously if and when this surge occurs, that we're able to deal with the unexpected that occurs with that, as well as we start in public safety to start having our own employees start having to go through the quarantines. So we're putting in a request to Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency for security support, and that will come in the form of either the National Guard and or state police support. And we expect to see the earliest part of that deployment here to the island, probably as early as this weekend or the beginning of next week. And again, what we're preparing for is in the event when this surge starts, that we have all the resources we need to deal with it from a security and a safety standpoint. So people shouldn't get too alarmed if they start seeing a couple of National Guardsmen or some additional state troopers on the island. It just means we're preparing.
Thank you. On the outline, will it go to Greg Tibnan for the public information update?
Hi, good evening. Well, we've been trying to keep up with everything that's going on. You know, every day seems like a fire drill when we get into work. So we've been really focused on trying to keep up with the hospital's information so we can push it out. Florencia Rulo and I have put together, every morning we put out a press release. For the most part, we've done about 9 press releases. We've pushed out 10 releases from the hospital and all the associated social media with it. We've been fielding questions regarding the executive orders, the emergency orders, as well as the governor's. So to date, we've had about 32 requests for media appearances, press or television, and they've been spread out between Roberto Santamaria or Chief Pittman or myself or the town manager. We do have a regular routine. We have a protocol. We try to, when something needs to be pushed out, we have an email and a text stream that goes to our COVID-19 incident response team. We have one that goes to our COVID-19 larger group that includes the hospital, land bank, NRTA, and so forth. We have obviously the select board, and then with the assistance of the emergency management coordinator, Sergeant Coakley, we've been pushing out activated other outreach methods such as Ping 4, Civic Ready. We're looking into geofencing. Of course, we have the sign at the Rotary. For the most part, we're trying to push out as much as we can, as quickly as we can, but we want to make sure it's accurate. Several of you have mentioned how quickly things are happening, and we're trying to play catch up sometimes. So please be patient. But I want to point to our website. Florencia Rulo has done an amazing job at putting an intense amount of information on the website, and it's really structured according to the type of information we get in from the hospital, from the governor, from what we've put out, as well as information and resources for residents, for businesses, and it's very organic. It is changing every day. Actually texting with Florencia right now, and we just added all the governor stuff and changed the page. So please refer people to that page, and you should all visit it yourselves often. We've been checking in with Jason Grazide from the hospital several times per day. He's been amazing and a great resource, and we hope that we are supporting him. And our outlet media, the media outlets that we push everything out to include the Inky, WACK, Cape Cod Times, Boston Globe, Herald, NPR, and the Associated Press. So that's pretty much the media outlets that we, send everything out to, aside from social media. And we've had some good statistics. We're trying to follow what people are going to. So we have statistics on our website. And for the past month, from February 25th, seems like 3 years ago now, to today, actually to this morning, we had 100,012 page views or hits on our website, of which 70%, roughly 79,000 of which were for our coronavirus page. So that shows that people are reaching out and using the resources that we're putting out there. And to put in perspective, that is over 100% increase from this time last year, which makes sense. So we also have statistics on social media and our Facebook page, our Instagram, and our Twitter. So that's what we're doing. And what we're trying to work on now with Jason Grazide is refining our message with the hospital and what we're pushing out to the public. And that's pretty much our brief.
Thank you. Oh, Libby, were you going to speak?
I was just going to go to Janet for the economic impact work group.
Good evening, everybody. We had our first meeting on Monday. So several of you were on that call, and we came up with some suggestions that for both the town and for the community to be working on. One of the suggestions for the town to help with the economic impact is some relief or postponement of real estate taxes that are coming up shortly, particularly for the business community to pay. I have been participating and coordinating a great deal with Christy in her role at the chamber around. I've been attending her meeting, she's been attending mine. I've been joining meetings that she set up. We had a call today around how to figure out setting up a fund for small business relief and getting because a lot of us are going off in a lot of different directions, and I think we're on one page now and working and moving forward together. I've also had a meeting with Remain and a group out of Tennessee called EVP to think about an economic impact study that will look beyond the immediate next 2 months, but towards what businesses are going to need for an economic recovery. We're sort of looking at this like, how do we come out at the end of the battle and reconstruct the community and the economy that we have? So we've got some groups in the Economic Impact Task Force, some folks interested in looking at the immediate human service, basic human needs, and then another group that's going to be looking at what's 3 to 6 to 8 months out for how we come out of the recovery, because we think it's going to be a different scenario. Lots of good conversations going on, lots of groups talking to each other in very meaningful ways, and I think we've got some good strong work and good strong workers working on it. Any questions?
I don't see any hands.
Pardon me?
I don't see any hands. I'm not missing anybody, right?
I don't think so.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Janet. And I know that Jason and Christy were involved as well as Don the other day. So I think you guys' participation is really helpful and critical to continuing this on. So town services status, as I think everybody knows right now, our local order is that town offices remain closed until April 6th, but now probably 7th because of the governor's order. And we are obviously going to have to evaluate that as we get a little closer to that date, because that date may need to be extended. We are working on essential services for governmental functions. Only essential services are in place right now. Some are occurring remotely. We're trying to separate staff as best we can and do conference calls, and now we can use Zoom for video conferencing and things. But we have lots of conversations with everybody pretty much all day, and some of us are here at the EOC pretty much all day, every day, including Saturday and Sunday. And we are just trying to cover all the bases that we can and make sure that things are happening as we can make them happen. We're going to be evaluating if more employees can work remotely from home so we can get some more services out there without impacting the stay-at-home order. So we're working on that. We're going to be doing that probably tomorrow and Friday as well. We have a daily call with our emergency response team, and so far Dawn has been in on that call, which is also extremely helpful. We've started we were doing a daily call and a daily email with employees, and I think just today we were trying out doing a daily video so that it can be posted on YouTube and on the town's website, so that employees so they don't have to be ready to listen to it at a certain time. They can watch it at any time, and the public can watch it as well. So our HR director, Human Resources Director, Amanda Perry, just did one today. I think it's up on the YouTube site. I'm pretty sure I didn't totally get to look through it today, but that's been very well received. She's got a lot of information on there. We're really trying hard to keep in contact with our employees and reassure them as to, you know, how we're going to be able to get things back going when we're able and when we can start rebounding, like was said previously. The board, I'm trying to get you all a situation report on a daily basis. Hopefully you won't be upset if you don't get one today because of this meeting. But trying to get that every day so everybody can at least have a good solid general idea about what's going on. And obviously if any of you want to know more, you can email through Dawn for now to get at that. Later this week, but possibly into more towards the beginning of next week, the Finance Director, Brian Turbot, has already started looking at potential revenue impacts from this situation, of which they are going to be significant on town revenue. And there's a lot of information coming in and out of the State Department of Revenue and other state offices as to what towns will and will not be able to do. And that ranges from town meetings and elections to revenue projections and certain things that taxpayers or ratepayers or fee payers may be able to get some amount of relief on. So we're trying to keep track of all of that and see how that is going to impact cash flow and things like that. We should start preparing people now. The town is going to have to start looking at potential austerity measures going into the next fiscal year. Maybe those can be lifted as we get hopefully more through fiscal 21. But one of the things that we are hearing from experts in the medical field is that this is not going to be, once we're hopefully within the next month or so ish through this particular pandemic right now, it may not be gone, and we may be going through some of this again in the fall or winter. So we're sort of keeping that in not really in the back of our minds, more in the front of our minds, to try to deal with something like that. So town budget and staffing is something that is on our plate right now. And we've just been trying to keep things going, but this is going to get on our plate very shortly. So more later to the board on that. Lastly, we had discussed a little bit earlier in the week about a potential dedicated meeting. If the board wanted to think about something like that, to both just dedicate yourselves to this and this only once a week for some period of time, half an hour, 45 minutes, something like that. And we thought that might help raise awareness and impress upon the public the importance of this and the importance of our orders, and to maintain compliance with them. And the more people comply with this, hopefully the sooner we can get past this, flatten the curve, and get on with all of our lives. So that would be maybe something for the board to think about. The messaging, I was sort of multitasking here, so I didn't totally hear if Greg brought that up. But we had talked, we've been talking on and off all day about messaging. I think that the hospital mentioned it as well. I'm just going to mention this, because I think it's out there. We have started to get some emails from seasonal homeowners who are upset that it sort of is seeming to them like nobody wants them here, and they're being kind of shunned. And I think our message is nothing to do with shunning. Our message is everything to do with, if you don't need to travel or be here, don't be here, because that has an impact on a lot of other things that you don't even know about. The hospital, town services, spreading the virus potentially around and unnecessarily. So we're just trying to get that message. So we want to be clear and consistent in our message throughout the town. So we earlier today did, again, talk a little bit about, should we have a bit of discussion at your meeting right now about the messaging. So a couple things for the board then out of this outline is any questions that you might have about what we just talked about, but also, do you want to have a dedicated meeting once a week? That may or may not be necessary. And do you want to have a discussion about the messaging so that the administration can be clear about what we're putting out on social media?
Board members, Christy?
I wanted to comment on the last two things. So the dedicated message, I think we need to be clear that this is a public safety. It's not that we don't want people coming to the island. It's that if you come to the island, there's a chance that we won't be able to, protect you or have the right services on island. And I think that's the last thing that we want to have, is to have an overwhelming capacity or overwhelm the capacity at our hospital and then not be able to provide the necessary needs of everybody in the community. So I've had the same issue at the chamber with people calling and saying, can I come visit now? And the answer is no, we don't have the capacity to help you. We also don't have restaurants that are open. So we want to maintain being the best island in the world and maintaining the best hospitality that we have. And that's going to come later in the year, or, hold off on visiting our island for now. So I think that the message needs to be like what you've been saying, is it's the capacity of the island. It's not that we don't want you. We want to be able to provide the best service that we can, and we can't handle the increase in influx. And in terms of a dedicated select board meeting, I'm completely in favor of that. I think it would demonstrate the severity of this and the importance that the town is behind the hospital and behind protecting our community.
Anybody else? The only thing Jason, go ahead.
I echo a little bit of what Christy said. I think we're getting a handling on the messaging. I think the information is getting to the select board in really great fashion the last 3 or 4 or 5 days. I know that first 7 to 10 days was just madness, and I think we're getting organized and we're getting the information, which is great. I think with the messaging is we just can't handle any more population, period, coming here. We're already at risk with the population that we have now. And that's what I've tried to help caretakers who are calling me saying, like, how do I talk to summer residents and they want me to open up at home? How do I, encourage them not to come? And so I think, I'm sending them information that the hospitals put out, 3 ventilators, 14 beds. We don't have the capacity for that. So putting it in terms of people coming here, you're putting yourself at risk and this community. And I think the language has gotten a lot better this last week. Of course, the media. Dawn, you said you've given a lot of quotes to different media sources, and they're not taking your quotes because they're balanced and it's information based and facts, and they want the really juicy one-liner. And so I think the message is getting out there.
Rita?
Yeah, I wanted to add to that, and I think Christy said it well, that we're looking at this as a public health emergency. And I think the hospital has made it very clear that this comes down to numbers and just keeping our numbers as low as possible, both the numbers of people that are impacted, and that's through keeping the numbers as low as possible on the island. People have been asking me, I've heard similar things about the messaging, and they've been asking how we're making our decisions and whether it's fair to tell people not to come or fair to tell people not to work. And I think that ultimately, as a board and as the town, everyone is trying to make decisions based on the community at large. I think all of us as individuals are looking out, ultimately for ourselves and making personal choices, and it's not in keeping with what's best for the community at large. So it's not really about fairness. It's about trying to really make decisions for the community at large and take the actions that we can to minimize exposure to the public. So it isn't about shunning people or keeping people away or us versus them, or whether it's fair for some people to work and others to not. It's really a numbers strategy at this point.
Matt?
I think I agree with everything that was said. I think that we have to realize we're all in this together, and and we've got to treat people the way we'd like to be treated. I think some of the things I've heard about people, sort of mad that if someone has a license plate from a different state, and kind of, sort of being mad at them, and some people, those plates live here. And so this isn't a, live here, don't live here thing. And I think people need to be nicer and realize that, we're all in this together. And, if people are here already or do come, they should quarantine themselves. They should do what we're doing. They should stay at home. They should be very, cognizant of what's happening. We're not open for, so we're not open. The bars aren't open. We aren't open for party time. We're here to, to quarantine. And I think that message, that is getting out there now, I believe.
I did have a number of people call and interview me, and it was interesting that I wasn't quoted, because they wanted to do a more riled up kind of message with this story of the super rich are flocking to Nantucket, and our community is much broader than that. And this is just all uncharted territory for us, and trying to stop something that could be unbelievably detrimental and could cause loss of life. And I'm equally concerned about any population increase to any constant back and forth off island, and everyone just needs to be careful. And Roberto's raising his hand.
So I just want to echo that one of the things that we put out yesterday as an alert was that if you are coming in from anywhere you've traveled for any endemic area, we put it out as a tweet as an area of local transmission, which can be New York, LA, Italy, Spain, any of those other areas. If you've come from any of those areas, please quarantine yourself for 14 days. We have it on the website. We put it out as an alert. We're trying to get it out. One of the biggest issues is that this is an issue of personal responsibility. And people really need to take responsibility for themselves as well, or else the hospital is going to have a lot of trouble. So we really want to echo that point.
Yeah, I've really liked the message that's being put out, that everyone should act like they have it, or they've been exposed to it, and behave accordingly. Are we going to take public questions at this time? Is YouTube going to get turned on and someone going to feed a few questions?
I think we're just waiting for Andrew to get the word on that.
Okay. Go ahead, Jason.
We have time to ask other questions from other things that we've heard at the end, just basic things that come up. Or should we get those out now?
I would do that now.
Yeah.
Let's try and keep
Okay.
it all on this topic, and then we'll move on to the rest of the agenda.
Okay. I have one.
Oh, and then we should talk about whether we want to have a dedicated meeting. I kind of felt like these meetings are going to be more than half dedicated, but we can talk about another meeting day too. Sorry, go ahead.
One quick thing, in order to put in questions for the live chat, hit your refresh button, or else it'll still say as chat's disabled.
Okay, I'm not fielding the questions. So does someone have them up? But Jason, finish what you were going to say first.
I just have one question for Chief Pittman on the National Guard. I don't think it's been out to the public yet. And just so, that's one of those things that people are, the telephone game's just going to start running, what would they be doing here? I know it's safety and security. Could you give us some examples for the public?
Yeah. We fully expect as sicknesses start to occur, that there'll start to be more challenges, especially over around Cottage Hospital. Cottage Hospital has no security at all. Right now, they have administrative staff that perform some of the role, but when they need assistance, they call the police officers or the police department. And, what we're trying to do is we're trying to preserve the number of police officers we have and not expose them to sickness. So we don't really want them going over there. But as the number of tests, people start wanting tests or start showing symptoms and coming into their drive-through, the traffic's going to get worse, the crowds are going to get worse, and like National Guard and or the state police can assist us in that area there. And yet they're an isolated group from the PD, so we can preserve the PD for community, to maintain community order. It'll be a very small presence in the greater scheme of things. It's more or less a presence that'll be intended to help us prepare in the event of a major situation to get a quicker deployment.
Okay, are we doing the YouTube feed?
Madam Chair, it's working. I can see it, but no messages yet.
Okay.
While we're waiting for messages and comments and things, does any of the board members have any other questions? Like Jason was saying at the beginning, now might be a good time for you all to ask anything or whatever.
Why don't we just move on to a few housekeeping things, like approving minutes, payroll.
Christy has her hand up.
Oh, sorry, Christy. You're at the bottom of my screen.
Sorry, it's not a question, but more of a comment that as we're working on our messaging, I want the town to continue to put out the resources that are available, especially around mental health. I know A Safe Place has set up, they're still available 24/7. Fairwinds is doing counseling online, and the Meals on Wheels has been expanded to anybody over the age of 60. So I know that we've been putting things out each day, but just continuing that message is really important, that our most vulnerable population is being served right now.
Thank you.
Do you want to take the
Was there anything else
that Christy was just saying? Okay, no mind. Okay, Christy, thank you. We've got the Human Services Director, Taylor Hilst, on top of all of the resource issues. I think we have them all on the website. And I believe that Florencia is pushing them out on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and stuff like that, but definitely we will continue to do that. And we're getting emails very regularly from places like Fairwinds and Safe Place, because those things are definitely going to be critically needed in the next, like now, and immediately going forward.
Jason, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I see some messages coming in. So when you're ready, I can throw some.
No, go ahead. We can go to that.
One from Frank. Is it true the town of Nantucket is issuing essential work orders, letters to non-essential private companies that are not listed on the town of Nantucket stay-at-home order? And if so, which companies?
Hi, it's Bill Pittman. I'll answer that. That's not true the way it's come across. There is a process for essential work orders. If a project feels they have essential work that would be necessary for the preservation or life, for the safety of the community or the property, they can make a request to either the DPW director if it's a road project related project, or the building commissioner if it's a building project. And then they'll review the parameters. They may offer alternative suggestions to rather than having to do certain work. And then they'll review if they're inclined to approve the project for valid reasons, they'll refer it to the Emergency Management Committee, which is the EOC here, and then we'll review it for a final approval. And what we do then is we issue a permit to proceed with the work. But what we're trying to do is to get them to very narrowly limit the scope and the timeline. And it has to be truly a emergency situation to preserve something. It's not just, I want to continue the job till I get it done type thing.
Thank you. Jason, do you want to keep going with questions?
Sure. There's one that says, has the town issued any fines to companies violating the work shutdown order by the town?
The answer would be no.
Okay. Let's see. This one is for the hospital. If the hospital doesn't mind answering some questions. Let's see. Has the influx slowed down of people coming here? Do we have any numbers from Steamship and Highline? In essence, has the stay-at-home order started to work in the construction moratorium? Are we seeing less people coming here?
Well, this is Gary. Typically, we're just monitoring what comes to the hospital. We don't have numbers from the airport or the steamship. From Martha's Vineyard's CEO and from myself, we've asked that the Highline and the steamship post notices, which essentially focus on public safety, that if you come here, we may end up in a situation if we have an epidemic where we have limited resources, but we are not in the position to count those numbers. I would only be giving you anecdotes. So I think that's a better question for the town if it's looked at that data.
Another question?
I can perhaps answer. We don't have real numbers, but we have some anecdotal evidence that it's working. For instance, I've been having the officers just kind of keep an eye on the boats, and this morning they said literally the number of people that got off the first boat this morning you could count on one hand, where any other day of the week before this would have been 300 plus people coming off the boat. I think the steamship earlier had the Eagle had 2 passenger vehicles on it, and every other vehicle was a freight truck coming over.
Matt had his hand raised with a question. Matt, go ahead.
No, and I can affirm what the chief said, that the delivery guys are saying the boat is really just essential services, that it's really shifted in the last 4 or 5 days. And I can also say, I think that the sort of the panic buying that was happening at the Stop and Shop is slowed down to more normal levels. And I think people are shopping less frequently. I think they're buying more, but just going a little bit less. It just seems to be different now.
Thank you. Jason, why don't you keep going? We'll keep questions open for a few more minutes.
Okay. I'm sorry that I can't get to all of them. Trying to spread them out in different areas. What happens when the fire department's EMT are overwhelmed with patients?
We have that issue in all the public safety departments. That's why we put in place a lot of measures to protect Quite honestly, the nurses and doctors are on the front line, but standing right behind them are the paramedics and EMTs. So they're taking precautions. We have a lot of procedures in place to pre-screen calls, to protective equipment for them. But to be honest, we have had several of them that have had to go into self-quarantine. So it is a very big concern for the island that we protect that staff, which is part of the reason why it's important to keep these orders in place that we've been talking about, because it has had an impact. Other towns have lost 5, 10, 15 officers and or EMTs. We've lost 1 police officer and I think 3 EMTs at this point.
Just to add a little quick thing, as we're sitting here, I got a text from the fire chief if they will answer calls and triage if needed.
Okay, couple more questions, and then
I have 2 questions that are talking about the similar thing. This is for the hospital. Could anyone speak to emergency plans, and Chief Pittman, emergency plans for expansion of hospital services if, when needed? Will schools be utilized as shelter? Would be reassuring to hear what plans are being discussed.
Do you want to take that, Diane?
No.
Okay. So that's what we call surge, and we're working a surge plan through the Partners Health System and Mass General to help us understand what resources would be available on the mainland. Of course, we've been very focused on what's happening there and their capability. I'll tell you that at this point, we are told by the Mass General that they have made some really huge strides in creating new space with ventilators so they can treat patients in that methodology, and that there right now is there is not any worry about that filling up. Of course, if their epidemic continues, that can always change quickly. We are taking the position on the island that, and Dr. Pearl can speak to this, that if we have patients that present here as part of our surge, and they are starting to move into a threshold that concerns the medical staff related to respiratory distress of some type, the goal is to get those folks off the island as soon as possible so that they could be in a place that can manage that more aggressively than we would have the capability to. We just hope it doesn't come to that. From the standpoint of creating surge capacity on the island, yes, there are alternative spaces that we're looking at. We actually have, as you know, a 14-bed inpatient facility, and Dr. Pearl and I and others have walked the entire building to look at if we actually needed to have people in beds. We have 44 rooms that we could use, but then the issue becomes staff. And so there are no staffs that sit on this island unused, no medical pools of people. And so that's where we begin to look at volunteers and other things to help us understand what is appropriate to keep and what would be appropriate to move off the island. There are then some centric rings that we would say are surging out of the hospital at that point if we start to have a capacity where we are full. And we're working with the town to identify those areas. I know several right now have been under consideration, but I'll leave that to Roberto Santamaria and the planners in the town to talk about what they think that might evolve to. We don't have control over those areas, but working really, really well together to identify what the possibilities could be. There are possibilities, and we're hoping that we won't have to use those, but we are identifying spaces. So first surge, if needed, try to get to Boston and get into a hospital. And then second and third surges would be fill up our hospital where necessary, and then move into either local or onshore planning. There has been consideration discussed of the logistics of getting large numbers of people off the island. We don't have those nailed down yet. They're still in the discussion point arena, but that's certainly ongoing, and it's a discussion we have every day. We have an incident command that connects to the mainland through both NEMA and our HICS protocol with the hospital to the Mass General. And every day we're sharing scenarios and doing scenario planning and discussions. So a tremendous amount of activity on it. That's probably the best I could say at this point. Dr. Pearl, anything else?
No, it's good. No, that's well summarized, Gary. And yes, we have 42. We've identified at least 42 or 44 places to take care of patients in our facility. And we have stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3 of the surge plan. And we are meeting twice a day internally to continue to refine what our plans will be.
Thank you very much. Shall we take one more question? And then we will have a public comment section after this, but this will be for items that are not on our agenda for discussion.
And I also think, Madam Chair, that I think Erica and Greg said that if questions that we don't get to tonight will be responded to at a later date. Is that correct? We'll do our best.
Yes, that's my understanding.
We might not be able to email people back because of this format, but we can certainly take their questions and maybe get something on the website with responses.
One more question I think is we're going to get a lot of is, will the construction ban be extended with the schools? I'm assuming with the extended school ban from the state.
I would think that, oh, Libby, did you want to go?
You go ahead.
I was just going to say, I would think that we would continue with what we've already said, that we would evaluate this every week and see where we're at. And maybe we'll be able to explore some ideas like putting parameters on at a certain time and slowly reopening things. But I don't think any of us know that yet. We're still at a very early stage. If anyone wants to add to that, please feel free.
I just wanted to say, we did say that we would review that at our April 1st meeting. That was our first review, so just so that people know.
Thank you. I guess we'll end questions for right now. People are seeing where the website to email in any other questions that will be responded to. We should probably make a decision on whether we think that we want a separate weekly meeting for the discussion on this. I mean, at this time, we're not putting a whole lot else on the agendas, but I'd like to hear from the board on that a little bit further. Matt?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. If you're only putting a couple other things, I'm fine with it doing weekly. If we get to the point where we have a lot of other issues, then I would say, sort of expand it and have a separate meeting.
Any other thoughts? Rita?
I would feel similar to Matt, that if things start to back up or there's more that we need to get out there and discuss in regards to the virus, then I think it isn't needed. But I think at this stage, as long as the agendas are kept light and we have the opportunity to spend this much time discussing it, I'm okay with this meeting being that focus.
Okay, Jason? And then Christy?
I was going to say the same thing. If our meetings start adding on, I don't want to say normal business, but other things, we don't have time to talk about this, then separate it. So I agree with Matt, Rita.
Christy?
Yeah, my question was more towards town admin are there other things that need to be covered that would extend the meetings? Otherwise, I'm fine with keeping one meeting as long as we do have the dedicated time to discuss this.
We'll keep Dawn and Rita posted about that as we looked a bit ahead for the next 2 or 3 weeks, and I think we can keep the agendas light for the next 2 or 3 weeks. There may be some other things that start popping up, but quite frankly, for the most part, the management staff is working on almost nothing but this right now anyway.
And I would say we'll keep this on the beginning of our agendas as well. Oh, Jason?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Libby and everybody for the situational report that we're getting. that might keep us only having this one meeting, but I really appreciate it when I get it. I read it 2 or 3 times, and it's really helpful. So thank you. When you're able to send that out, it's really helpful.
Okay. Now, I'm not sure how the YouTube feed is working at the moment, but this is the portion of our agenda where we welcome public comment. It's not necessarily something that we'll respond to right now, but this is for any other topic that's not on our agenda. I'm kind of guessing that we might not have anything tonight. But just let me know if anything comes up.
Madam Chair, I think it was disabled, so people have to refresh their computers again for it to start again. So we might have to wait a minute.
I'm looking to you to tell me because I have too many other things on my screen.
It's just going to take a minute for people to refresh their screens. Madam Chair, while we're waiting, I can just say one thing. People have asked if this is possible to have the messages coming out from one person from the town and one from the hospital, or at least one venue. It's more consistent, like at 4 o'clock every day, it's coming from NCTV 18, the video, and then put that on Facebook. I'm getting those type of questions of how to make it more consistent. And I didn't know if, I know it's, it's Libby, Chief, Don, Greg, Roberto, all putting out stuff. I don't know if it makes sense to have just one person, if it's even possible.
Well, Greg is our public information officer. Maybe he wants to respond to that.
Yeah, it's fine. Most of the information should be going through me because I've been keeping logs. So sometimes I'm a little slow on the uptake because I'm very busy with other things, but I appreciate even other departments have been telling me when they've been doing things or issuing press releases or talking to the public, just so I can keep a running tally of what's going on. And so I have the same message going out.
Are you
Okay.
ready for some public comment, Dawn?
Are there any public comments?
Yeah. This is the second time this one's been posted. Please discuss Nantucket's boating community. What's the current projected status of recreational, professional sailboat, motorboating, community sailing, as well as the major boat yards? I don't know if that's outside of what we've already been talking about. I'm assuming it's not essential service.
I'm assuming they're relating to this. Maybe we could get an answer posted on the website that addresses that. And I mean, I would say it's probably one of the other things that still remains to be seen, how long we're going to be in like the shelter in place mode. Does that make sense? We can try and address that on the website. Okay. Anything else?
There's other things coming up, but it's what is our lag time considering other states and towns as far as predicted spike and possible infections? A few days, a week.
Okay, we're gonna. I mean, unfortunately, we're gonna stop for tonight with the things related to COVID-19.
Okay.
And I was opening it for any other public comments. I don't want to cut people off, but they should email their questions into the website, and we'll get through the rest of the agenda, and we'll have this on our agenda every week, and information will be going out every week. And there's a ton of information already on the website. So if there's no other public comments that are not related to something that's otherwise on our agenda, I don't believe that there's any new business besides all the new business we've been dealing with. We'll move on to approval of minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. I'm by roll call vote. Rita Higgins.
Rita, aye.
Jason Bridges.
Jason, aye.
Matt Fee.
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella,
Aye.
Don Holgate, aye. Those are approved unanimously. Can I have a motion for both the payroll and treasury warrants?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call, Rita Higgins,
Aye.
Jason Bridges,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Matt Fee, aye.
Christy Ferrantella,
Aye.
and Don Holgate, aye. Those are approved unanimously. Approval of pending contracts.
I would approve. I just had one comment that I'd already mentioned to Libby that possibly the construction services agreement, the date might have to be changed.
The date will definitely have to be changed, yes.
With that note, I would move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor by roll call, Rita Higgins,
Aye.
Jason Bridges,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella,
Aye.
Don Holgate, aye. Those are approved unanimously. Sorry, I just have to flip the page of my agenda. Now, next on the town manager's report, this is Tucker Holland, I think, is going to introduce this.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to address this item. This is the renewal of our Housing Choice Communities designation. The board may recall 2 years ago, we were part of the inaugural class in the Governor's Housing Choice Program. This is a signature program of the Governor and Lieutenant Governor, and this is simply a renewal of our membership, if you will, in this group. We have achieved actually both methods by which communities are eligible to be included, both through production and through best practices. And inclusion in the Housing Choice Program basically gives us access to an exclusive pool of grant funds only for housing choice communities. As well, it gives us bonus points when applying for other state programs such as MassWorks. I'm happy to answer any other questions. Would appreciate the board's approval of this measure. Originally, it was due March 23rd. Due to the COVID situation, that date has been extended till April 13th.
Does anybody have any questions on that? And if not, a motion?
Move approval.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor by roll call, Rita Higgins,
Yep. Aye.
Jason Bridges,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella,
Aye.
Don Holgate, aye. That is approved unanimously. Thank you, Tucker.
Thank you.
We've already addressed item number 1 under select board comments. Does anyone have committee reports? I'm assuming not. We've all been pretty absorbed. Oh, Matt, go ahead.
Well, are we gonna, it's not necessarily a committee report. Are we going to have selectmen's comment? Are we going to talk again at the end, or? You're muted, Don.
Sorry, now would be the time to
Okay.
speak.
A couple things. I had one person couple of people contacted me, and since the Athenaeum is closed, they'd like to be able to pick up books. I would like the emergency, buy books. I'd like the emergency management committee to look at that, see if there's a safe way to do that. I look at that as a mental health issue. That's number 1. Number 2, I'm just going to read. People are wondering why we're doing this. And while we were meeting, Sheila just came in, and she has a friend who's a nurse in New York, and she just received a text, and it says, people are really sick. She's in a hospital down in New York. Such fear and chaos. We are trying to figure out how 3 or 4 people can share one ventilator. Yep, our entire hospital is COVID deemed. So every hallway, cafeteria, every floor, every inch has beds for patients. I have never, in capital letters, seen anything like this. And we just lost our 48-year-old nurse manager, who's a man. I don't know why I should put that in the emergency department. They were wearing garbage bags as PPEs. It's so sad, exclamation points. If anyone knows anyone who has masks or anything, please reach out. So that is what's happening on the front lines in New York right now. So if anybody is wondering, and thinking we're going overboard, we're not. That is what is potentially coming our way. That is why the hospital is taking the stance they are. That is why, the staff is meeting every day. People have to be, people have to be cognizant of where we're heading. That's all.
Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else before we adjourn? We'll get a little better handle on this new format, but I think we did okay for our first time.
Can I just I do just want to say thank you to everyone in the town. Seeing what some of the other towns are putting out, we are ahead of it in terms of messaging and the amount of information we have out there. So I just want to say a big thank you.
Yeah, they've been working really hard, a lot of hours and effort here. And I'm sure that that everyone's own families are feeling a little neglected. Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to echo what Rita just said with all our town officials and everyone that's working 7 days a week, trying to get a handle on all this and leading us through it in the hospital. But I also wanted to thank anybody that's working Stop and Shop, any of our grocery stores that are coming to work every day, putting themselves at risk. That's people should be cheering them. If we're asked as a community to social distance and not bring your kids to the grocery store, we should do it. Even if you just want to be selfish and you want access to food down the road, we have to keep our grocery store associates safe. We have to keep people who work at the wastewater treatment facility safe. Our public safety officials, they cannot go down at all. And so that's why I've been thinking more of who's making the decision to go to work in places like the grocery store every day and putting themselves at risk. I just wanted to let them know that I'm thinking about them. I know a lot of others are. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I would echo all of those comments. Anything else from anybody? Oh, Rita?
No.
Oh. Matt, go ahead. What?
He's moving to adjourn.
Oh, sorry, it was garbled. Is that a second?
Yes, that's a second.
Okay, all those in favor by roll call?
Rita, aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Christy?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Don Holgate, aye. Thank you all, and we'll see you next week, if not sooner.
Good job, Don.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, IT department, NCTV 18.
Thank you.